The January 13th, 2025 Board of Education, Wichita Board of Education meeting is called to order. The roll call, everyone is here. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and we look forward to a productive meeting. Would you please join with me for a moment of silence? Thank you. And at this time, we are going to have the pleasure of having the West High JROTC lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please rise.
Forward, march. Color guard, halt. Left, face. Present, arms. Sir, requesting permission to post the colors. Sir,
You may post the colors.
order, arms. Post. Post. Present arms. Please join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, arms. Post. Colors codes turn, march.
You may be seated, and please join with me in a round of applause for the West High JROT, led by Sergeant First Class Aaron Gilkerson, Commander Sergeant Major Nikolai Duran, Second Lieutenant Jorge Rojas, Second Lieutenant Caitlin Olson. Thank you for joining us tonight, and good job as always. Latoya, next item, please.
Good news, recognition of board members for School Board Appreciation Month.
All right, I'm coming over here so I can talk to you all at the same time. It is School Board Appreciation Month in the month of January, and we would like to take this moment to recognize and express our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for your service. Stan Reeser, Diane Albert, Kathy Bond, Julie Hedrick, Melody McRae Miller, Hazel Stabler, and Nok Vong. These individuals volunteer their time, energy, and expertise to serve our district, and their commitment to education is invaluable. The role of a board member is often challenging and demanding, requiring countless hours. As the largest school district in the state of Kansas, Wichita's school board is responsible for serving more than 47,000 students. From approving the district's annual budget of over $966 million to setting policies that guide our 88 schools, our school board members ensure that every WPS student receives the support and resources needed to succeed. Their efforts to maintain the highest standards in education and ensure that Wichita Public Schools continues to grow, evolve, and meet the diverse needs of our community. So I want to personally thank the 7 of you guys. I get to see probably more than most the hours, the dedication, the time, the text, the calls, all the things in between that lots of people don't know goes on to help all of the kids. I'm honored to serve because I know that all 7 of you believe in every single student in Wichita Public Schools, and you task us with making sure that they get the best education possible and they achieve the goals of our strategic plan. So I can take no real credit for all of the fun stuff here. We want it to look fun and maybe a little messy and a little kid-like here at the board table tonight. So at a break or after the meeting, if you haven't yet, we have all sorts of cards and thank yous from all over the district, from kindergarten to high school kids, telling you that they appreciate you, they appreciate what you do for them to make it possible for them to achieve their dreams and their goals and what they want to do in life. So from me, from all of the district leadership team, from all the staff and the students at WPS, sincerely want to thank you for all that you do, and you are appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And this is a highlight of our year every year. When we get home, we go through all these fun cards from the students. We love them. And this year's extra little bonus of some poster boards, and we definitely will be glancing at those and taking pictures. So thank you so much. Latona, next item, please.
United Teachers of Wichita.
Welcome, Katie.
Hello. Just a second. Good evening, President Reeser, Vice President Albert, distinguished school board members, and Superintendent Bielefeld. I wanted to start by saying Happy School Board Appreciation Month, and thank you for your dedication to the student, staff, and families of Wichita. Your leadership is essential as we work toward building a strong future for our students. The recent cold weather has highlighted the challenges posed by our aging school buildings. Many classrooms recently struggled to maintain comfortable temperatures, making it clear how critical it is to address the infrastructure needs in our district. These conditions underscore the importance of the proposed WPS bond, which focuses on updating and maintaining our schools. We recently conducted our winter survey, gathering input from WPS educators, and the majority of educators express support for this bond. Our educators see firsthand how critical it is to invest in maintaining and improving our facilities. Updated buildings mean safer, more welcoming environments where students and teachers can thrive. We look forward to reviewing the full survey results with each of you during our monthly meetings once the complete report is ready. We also wanted to say thank you to the maintenance department. They worked quickly to address some of the heating issues in the older buildings, ensuring that our schools remained operational despite these challenges. I just wanted to thank you again for your commitment to Wichita Public Schools. Thank you for your continued leadership and partnership as we work to ensure that every student in Wichita is future ready. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. Latona, next item, please.
Service Employees International Union.
Next item, then.
Public Communications, Jennifer Kupke.
Our first speaker is Jennifer Kupke, and as you probably have already been told, you have 3 minutes, and I think you probably have all the other items already been told to you, so I'll just give you the time.
Thank you. Happy Board of Education Appreciation Month. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for everything that you guys do.
Thank you.
Recently, the Derby School District rejected a proposed social studies curriculum for their high school students because they were concerned that Donald Trump's presidency wasn't fairly represented in the material. This curriculum was reviewed by and recommended by Derby High School teachers. This was reported on by Suzanne Perez, and I've provided the article from the Wichita Eagle to the board members. The main issues that they had with the curriculum centered around the Muslim ban, an executive order suspending all travel and immigration from countries that were predominantly Muslim, and the January 6th Capitol riots. That these events did in fact happen should not be up for debate. We collectively watched them happen, and there's video evidence. Recently, there has been an agenda to rewrite historical facts that might make white people look bad or might hurt their feelings. We cannot let this happen in Wichita Public School System. This way of thinking can only have harmful results. Public school isn't about indoctrination. It isn't about making future cogs in a machine. Public school is the last great equalizer in our society, a society that today looks more like the Gilded Era than in any other time in American history. Public school is where children are taught to think critically about the world around them. And in order to accomplish this, they need to be given all of the information. Holding back facts and outright lying to them is not only unconscionable, it's outright dangerous to the success of our society. If we truly want better for our children, we need to do right by them. It's important that Wichita School District not follow Derby's example. They should make it clear to the families that rely on public education that they intend for the curriculum in Wichita schools to always provide factual information and a level playing field for its students. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Walt Chappell. Well, welcome, Walt. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Folks, we've got a number of items on your agenda tonight that I'm very concerned about, one of which is design services. This is getting the cart before the horse. You have been presented with lots of different information saying you should close schools. And as I recall going to those various conferences and meetings with the public, I didn't hear any of the public say, please close my school, but you did 6 anyway. There is no $1.2 billion deficit in terms of deferred maintenance. You don't have a $42 million deficit on your balance sheet. You've actually carried cash forward. So there's a lot of misinformation going out to the public, and you're being asked to design buildings for a project that you haven't actually had voter approval. Now, 6 of you decided we'd go ahead with an election, but let's leave it to the voters of Wichita to decide whether or not there's actually going to be $450 million of additional bonds. This is really critical. We send our kids to school to learn, but yet the test scores have dropped. Since 2017, they've gone from 19.6 for math down to 14.5% proficient. We have, in science, we're gone from 23 down to 16.9. So we're going the wrong direction. Only 16.9% of the kids proficient in math or science is not something we should be proud of. And certainly it won't be benefited by building more buildings. So I ask you to table this motion tonight. Do not go ahead and approve bids for people to go out and try to design buildings for which the public has not had a chance to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walt. Yes, this did come up at the workshop today, and I just wanted to clarify the items that Mr. Chappell just brought up, and Kelly, let you have the floor.
Yeah, and I'm just really going to read the agenda item for the public and for everybody to make sure we're clear. Dr. Chappell said a lot of misinformation is going out to the public, and I agree with that. So the agenda item says in the 3rd paragraph, all firms are proceeding with design development work at their own risk and understand that their fee and payment for services rendered is solely dependent on successful passage of the proposed bond. So the vote tonight is not spending any dollars. It is simply saying these are the groups that will work for or work with on February 26th if the bond were to pass. So just want to make sure everyone has that information in case you don't have the agenda in front of you.
And the date of that election is 2/25 of 25. Yes, Kathy?
And I just want to say that my husband, being in the contracting business, said this is how businesses do it. We're not an isolated event, you could say. I mean, this is, because I asked my husband about this, and he goes, that's how businesses do it. They're in competition with each other to see who's going to get the best bid in the event that it should pass. So I just wanted to reiterate that I got good information on that.
Thank you, Kathy. Latona, next item, please.
Strategic Plan Goal 2, High School Interim Goal Data Update.
And I'll let the superintendent introduce the topic as the speakers come down.
Yeah, so welcome to Holly and Brandon. They're going to inform us about one of our interim goals, which is about the post-secondary assets and keeping our high school kids ready for the many, many opportunities that they have in front of them as they head across the graduation stage and into their future. So this will be new learning, as we say in the classroom sometimes. This is not a goal you've heard reports on before. This is part of the strategic plan, but this is new in year one of the plan. So with that, once everything's passed out, Holly can take it away.
Welcome, Holly and Brandon.
Good evening, President Reeser, Vice President Albert, and board members. We're excited to come talk to you about high school. I feel like so often we are talking about elementary literacy, and Brandon and I are high school folks, so we get real excited to talk about high school. So we're talking around Goal 2 of our strategic plan, which, as you all know, but a reminder for you, is that we would have at least 50% of our students that are achieving 5 or more post-secondary assets by 2029. So that's our big overall strategic goal. And we gave you a handout around the graduation requirements and what those post-secondary assets are. So we're not diving into that. We're going to share data around our interim goal for high school, which is that this year, 100% of our students will be monitored each month during advocacy on their progress towards these post-secondary assets. So we've started that this fall, and so through the fall, we're at 73%, so we still have some ways to go. This is more about an adult behavior than a student behavior. We need students to be there, but it's also just a new activity we're doing with adults. So every teacher doing this once a month with every kid. So just making sure we've clearly communicated that. They know how to enter the information. So we know that this data has opportunity to grow up. But we do have some celebration of our buildings who are above the district average. So Sowers was at 75% for first semester. South High at 79%, Southeast at 83%, Chester Lewis and Northeast Magnet led the way at 91%, which I think it's pretty exciting to see some of our alternative settings have such a high percentage, knowing that the kids have to be there and the adults need to do this with them, but to know that those kids need this, all our kids need it, but those kids in our alternative settings have that as well. Dr. Hatfield being the number person she is, at the time she pulled this, we had 13,805 high school students. So these monthly check-ins gave us 55,000 opportunities to check in with kids in our high schools one-on-one. We didn't get there at 100%, but that's how many opportunities of one-on-one connections that we have with kids. So that's why it's our goal to be working through that. So Brandon's going to talk about just a little some of the topics that we do in these check-ins with kids.
So we're intentional about making sure that we spread out the topics throughout the 4 years so that we don't have the same repeat conversations with kids every single month, every single year. We want them to stay intrigued and excited about their future. So if you look up there, you can see that with freshmen, we're talking about clubs and activities. We know that belonging really matters for kids, so if they have something that ties them to school, whether that's a sport, an activity, or a club, they're more likely to come on a regular basis, and they're more likely to actually enjoy school and stay all the way through their senior year. So a big focus on clubs and activities with our freshmen. Our sophomores are really focused on attendance, just educating them on the importance of it. I have always believed, as a former high school teacher, high school admin, is that the sophomore year is the make or break year. And if we can educate them on the importance of attendance and being there on a regular basis, we're more than likely going to get you across the stage if you show up and have success your sophomore year. Junior year is all about post-secondary exploration. You know that's a focus for the state. It is for us as a district. We've got to educate our kids on what assets does that mean for you to obtain and earn while you're in high school so that you have more likely to be successful when you leave us after your senior year. Then our senior year is just current prep and plans for post-secondary transition. Hopefully we know for each individual kid what they want to do once they walk across that stage, whether that's go right into the workforce, go into the military, go to a 2-year, go to a 4-year, whatever it might be that's best for their fit. We know what that is, and we're guiding them along the way their senior year so they can be successful as we transition them out. And we did a good job of kind of surveying teachers from across the district and all of our schools and how this is impacting them and how they can make a better connection with kids through this. Because if you heard earlier, we talked about 55,000 possible points of contact. Could you imagine if your teacher actually sat down with you for 5 minutes at the minimum every single month? That makes a huge impact. So our teachers told us, you can look up there on the screen and see, it keeps the students understand how the classes they take in high school can benefit them in their post-secondary education or career. That's big. That didn't happen to every single kid. Probably didn't happen for all of you when you were in high school that teachers were talking to you about that. The second one is, I think the biggest benefit is just that one-on-one connection. Students want to be noticed by their teachers. It's nice to take a moment to just have a conversation with them to see how they're doing. You think about East High and North High, they have 7 classes in a day. That's a lot of transitions. Our block schedules are 4 periods a day. You're transitioning from class to class, seeing different faces. But if that one consistent advocacy teacher is checking in with you weekly and you get to know them and build a solid relationship, you're more likely to trust that person, want to not disappoint that person, and come to school. So our advocacy teachers are doing great work by checking in this way with our kids. Some more feedback up there, just talking about students discussing the different things within Zello and the plans themselves and what they can do after school. That's great. The next one is a lot of my students are looking at trade schools or training programs, so it has been helpful to be able to show them the different options or pathways. I think Mr. Bielefeld says it the best. Nobody has better options than USD 259, and we want to educate our kids on those great options. All of the things that we have for our kids here at North High across the street with the manufacturing FRC, our health FRC, coming down the road with our cybersecurity FRC, we got all the things coming, so those are good things. And then students are more aware of deadlines and understand the importance of attendance, grades, and see accomplishments well. I also want to emphasize deadlines for senior year are huge when you think about FAFSA, scholarships, all the things we've got to do for our kids. Because when you want to get money in kids' hands, you've got to get the deadline. Sometimes the kids who's the most punctual just get the things they want because they did it in the right time. So our teachers are doing good work there.
So as we move forward, we want to see that 73 be higher the next time we come back to you and a lot closer to our goal. As I said earlier, anytime you do something new and you need to communicate it with thousands of adults across the district to impact 13,000 kids, we just want to continue to refine just that data entry process so teachers clearly understand it, and just our collection processes. So we learned a few things of, okay, hey, what do we do when the kid's enrolled halfway through to make sure we just have that tightened up. Continue to communicate this with the teachers, with reminders, sharing the data with our principals to share with their staff. So principals are getting the data on the monthly update now as well. And then we've gotten some feedback from teachers. We want to also ask kids, like, we put these topics together, but what topics would be most relevant? Because we can be very fluid with these, doing them on a monthly basis. We might think this was the best plan our first year, but we can continue to evolve them based on what students and teachers tell us. So that's what we hope to do as we go into this next semester.
And you don't be confused. When Dr. Hatfield has a goal and a plan, we execute said goal and plan. Every single week we get an update on the data. Every single week we know where we're at, and every single week we know what we're going to do to make it better. So Dr. Hatfield keeps us in line, and we help support the principals and APs so we can have accountability and support in all of our schools, because that's what's best for our kids.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna add a couple of my thoughts in here too. In my previous role in College and Career Readiness Office, one of our sayings was, everyone is a career counselor in a high school. Every adult is a career counselor. Your coach, your JAG teacher, your algebra teacher, everybody. And what we're trying to do to some extent is really systemize this mindset shift that we should all be talking to kids all the time about what they're good at. Not necessarily what they're good at as far as you scored really well on this test, but what you're good at as far as, you can talk to anybody, Brandon. You should think about careers in things where you talk to people a lot, right? Or you're super introverted. You should think about careers that lend themselves to that. One of my favorite stories when we first started the plane build over at the Manufacturing Future Ready Center, we had the DLT group that came in, and the kid was riveting something, and one of the DLT folks asked the kid, he said, "Hey, you like this?" Expecting, "Oh yeah, yeah." And the kid said, "No, I hate this. I want to be an engineer. This is loud, and this is, I don't like this. I'll build the plane because I'm in the class, but this isn't what I want to do." And in so many ways, that's a win. Right? That's a win because that kid now knows this isn't what I like to do. I like to do these things over here. I hope you also pick up on the overlap. When you guys passed this strategic plan a little bit over a year ago, we talked about the overlap of these goals, that they aren't goals in silos. And so you can probably see how this advocacy teacher working with post-secondary assets also creates a sense of belonging, also increases attendance. When those teachers start talking about the classes that they're offering and how that becomes relevant to a career, that helps goal number one. Those ACT scores come up because we see relevance in the learning instead of just learning in a vacuum. So it is very interconnected. There'll be other areas that lift as we get this going, get this systemized. But it is new. We are working out kinks and storming a little bit. But overall, I appreciate the progress we've made, and I think it's definitely headed in the right direction. So, no.
One quick thing before questions. So your handout is the graduation requirements for our current freshmen. The back of it is the post-secondary assets. So just our freshman class has to have 2 of the post-secondary assets to graduate. But you look through that list on the back side, they are, the ACT score, sealed by literacy. They are things that are good in college world, career world. So that's why it's a strategic plan goal for kids to graduate with 5 or more, because we know the more equipped they are with these, the better they're going to enter college or career. So the front side graduation requirements for freshmen only, but it was all together, so you got the whole thing. The back side has the list of the post-secondary assets. So any questions that we can answer for you?
We do. Knock?
I would love to sit in on the check-ins across the grade levels. Could you arrange that for us?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what schools you want to go to,
Yeah.
what time of day you're available. You just got to work with Kelly's office, and we'll make that happen,
I
right?
appreciate it.
Advocacy is at the same time.
And it's not the same time at every school. We have different schedules. You think about East and Northeast Maine have different schedules, and then some of our block schedules run at the end of the day. Some of them butted up next to their lunch or in the morning. So depends on what building you want to do it in. But yeah, we can make that happen.
All right, sounds good. Next question. So for the student check-in completion percentages, that will be posted on the data dashboard, right? Okay.
Yes. I don't think it's there yet, since we just kind of have the first semester finalized, but yes.
Okay, and then all the schools will be listed?
I don't want to say promise, but yes, we'll have those on there, I believe. I look at Kelly, like, I'm not sure if we have everything on there by school yet.
Well, and a bit of what we're trying to do right now is figure out the infrastructure to track this. And so that's been a little bit
Yeah.
clunky. I don't know if
Yes.
that's fair.
That's
a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer to that yet. So Lauren, do you have an answer? Lauren probably has an answer. Unless Brandon knows.
No, Dr. Hatfield.
So internally, like our internal data dashboard, we do have individual schools listed, but our data dashboard that's part of the strategic plan on the website is district-wide, so it is not broken down in that way. As Kelly said, we are still in the infancy of, that number changed a lot from this month to this month. What happened? And figuring out all of those kinks and pieces, because we're pulling data from a student information system, where adults put it in. It's a little bit, but it is the strategic plan data dashboard on the website is district-wide data. It is not individual school-specific data. But we do have it internally, individual school-specific.
The other thing I wanted to say on your first question, part of my pause was, I don't necessarily do the check-in with every student in one advocacy class period. So Brandon might be going to his math class to make up his math quiz, but I do my check-in with Kelly because Kelly's there, doesn't have any homework, and I have that opportunity for that one-on-one. So we'll just have to orchestrate it so a teacher has planned to do, so it's not you do them on this Monday, or they have across the whole month. So that was also part of my pause when you asked that question.
Yeah, so if you're specific, like if you want to do it with Mr. Rogers at South High, we could schedule that in a way so that we didn't set you up so that you couldn't see it in action. Yep.
And then could you elaborate on the strategies to increase the check-in percentages?
Yeah, so we have multiple things we do there. At the high school level, usually there's an assistant principal who's in charge of this directly. It's their job responsibility to make sure that every advocacy teacher does this. So we have the high accountability, high support from our office to them. Here's your data every single month. This is where you're at. What is the next strategy? So one-on-one when we go out, like I have Heights as one of my buildings. I meet with Mr. Fisher at Heights. What is your strategy at Heights High School to make sure that we increase this percentage from this to the next highest level that we can do that. And we sit down and we come up with a plan each time. So it's individualized like that at the AP to secondary office level, and then they go back and then they have those conversations with their advocacy teachers about here's the strategy that we're going to do. How do we help that kid who's chronically absent come to school, get them at the right time? Because if you're not at school, it's pretty hard to get you into this yes box, right? So it starts at us at accountability and support, and it goes to the AP down to the teacher level to the student level. And it's pretty much just about being honest with our data, not being upset with anybody about the data, but just saying, here's the standard, here's the expectation, and we will meet that standard and expectation.
And then lastly, this is a Kelly question. So for clarification, eventually the district's data dashboard will have like the school level breakdowns, or is it just going to be like district?
I would
wide and
imagine it's
accurate?
going to be district.
Okay.
And then, but like Lauren said, I think we can disaggregate it any way, shape, or form we want to within. But yeah, and we can talk more about the reasoning behind the doing it as a district. But
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Knock. I had a couple quick questions. Number one, since the superintendent brought up our Future Ready Center on manufacturing and aircraft, I had a constituent ask me if the bond passes, our next Future Ready Center is going to be based off of the trades, is that correct? And that's going to be using the area behind East High, which was the old technical college?
yes, yeah. So we would revamp a decent amount of that footprint. Excuse me. If the bond were to pass, and we were to start this project, we would revamp a decent part of that footprint. There's some poles, electrical poles that they use for the lineman program that we may consolidate some of that and not have as many of those out there. But what would exist as far as the curriculum goes would be really application level CTE courses in construction. So plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and energy. Those would be the four tracks that you could go there. This wouldn't replace anything that's going on currently in the high schools. These would be, if I take a couple carpentry classes at high school and then I want to go there and specialize in one of these areas, I could. Or if my high school doesn't offer construction, and not all of our high schools do, then I could go straight to the Future Ready Center, take the one semester of the prereq, Carpentry 1 class, and then move into one of those pathways if they want. So, we had an engagement event there right before Christmas, and had a great turnout from unions and subcontractors and contractors. They have overall an aging population, a lot of people near retirement, and they need that pipeline filled, and that's really the void we're trying to fill in that, and really bolster that because we all. I had a plumber in my house this week. I think Julie had a plumber in her house last week. They're important folks. We need people doing those jobs. So,
Thank you. And then our second current Future Ready Center is in health services, nursing aid, and LPN, correct?
yeah, and then there's one kind of in the middle there too. So we currently have two fully functioning operational. One's in manufacturing, and then one's in healthcare, which is EMT, CNA, and pre-RN. And then next August, we will launch the Future Ready Center for cybersecurity and IT,
Okay.
which will also be on East Harry in that same building. Same model, juniors and seniors, fully credentials, work with WSU Tech, job-ready skills. You can go to college out of it. You can go straight into the workforce out of it. But really trying to align with the city and the economic development we do as a city. They have 7 target areas. The Greater Wichita Partnership has 7 target areas. These are 4 of the 7 that we're trying to align with, and the top 3 for sure with IT, healthcare, and manufacturing. So,
Thank you. And my quick question for Brandon and Holly. Right now, the state requirement is 2 post-secondary assets, correct?
For our
And
freshman
Wichita,
class.
we have a goal, or is it ours I heard somebody say 5.
Yes.
Could you clarify that?
So the strategic plan goal is that we'd have at least 50% of the senior class in 2029 that graduate with 5 or more. Because we know to just get 2 isn't necessarily giving you as many tools as you might want in your tool belt to go out and be competitive in the workforce or in the college level. So we wanted to, if we can graduate half of our class with more than that 2, we're sending you even more prepared out to college, career, whatever, or straight into the tech school, trade school, things like that.
So in 2029, I'm Brandon. I do the bare minimum. I get 2. I can walk. Holly's Holly. She gets 16. We both walk together, but I don't count in the 50% of the goal. She does.
Okay.
But I still graduate because I'm at the state requirement of 2. But we believe in Wichita Public Schools that 5 should be the minimum because we want our students to be as equipped as possible because it could change. I might think I'm a college-bound kid with the couple that I have, but then, oh, that didn't work out for me. Now I'm going to go into HVAC. So I have these other skills that I came with me because we provided that for them here in Wichita Public Schools.
And the philosophy behind post-secondary assets is, and I would encourage, this list is on our website. I would encourage all parents to print it out and put it on your refrigerator. But the philosophy is we don't want to be just, we've made a goal of increasing graduation rates, but we want the graduation to actually, the diploma to actually be meaningful.
Yeah.
That's the philosophy behind
Absolutely.
it, correct? Okay. And then my last question is about the check-ins. How, is there a way, I'm just going to plant a seed here, is there a way to increase the check-ins on the junior and senior year? Because that's, from the feedback I get from parents, is they're kind of combating the senioritis, the common term for that. And it seems like maybe this would be one way that we could maybe combat that a little bit, is having a lot more check-ins in order to spur on thought about careers and college and that type of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's impossible for us to do if that's something we want to consider as a system. But I would also say our plan being in the first year, if we're as responsive as we believe we are, the freshman and sophomore year will set the foundation so we have less kids who are disengaged by their junior and senior
That's a good
year.
point.
So if we do freshman and sophomore year well with the plan and we check in the way that we should be and we build the relationships we could be and get the kids involved the way they should be, that should decrease the number of students, their junior and senior, who need that constant reminder because they have more clarity on what the future looks like for them. So I'm not saying you're wrong. That's definitely something we could explore, but hopefully our preparedness here sets us up for success down the road so we don't have to have that much of a reactionary procedure down the road.
I appreciate that clarification. Melody?
Thank you. I'm wondering if I'm actually mic'd. But you're like, yeah. So, I just wanted to give a shout out to Principal Morgan Nance over at Sowers. I think she's done, all of our principals are doing phenomenal jobs. I know that, pin in it. But I actually went out to Sowers, I've gone several times, and she was very, very pleased with that 75% and is looking at it going even higher than that. Sowers is an alternative program. And so when our superintendent says that everyone is a career counselor, that's exactly their philosophy. Everyone in that building, support, teacher, administrative, all of them are career counselors. And because in order to get that population of students to hit those numbers, you have to be. And even doing that, by getting those students engaged, that creates dividends, because what she was sharing with me is that they then bring other students on. They kind of say, come on, you can do this. Man, I was able to do it. You can do this. So, it doesn't just stop with that one student. It actually has a ripple effect. So that engagement is key. Get them early, keep them on task, get them on through. So just wanted to put that shout out to Principal Nance.
Mrs. Nance loves her kids to high expectations at Sowers. She does an excellent job.
Thank you, Melody. And thank you. Oh, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate this update and look forward to the next one. Latona, next item, please.
2025 legislative agenda.
And again, I'll have the superintendent introduce the topic.
All right, welcome to Addie. We are going, you guys have seen a couple drafts of this up to this point. So I think what you'll see tonight reflects a lot of what we've been planning and bring forward as far as the legislative agenda goes. And I will pass it off to Addie, and then we'll open up for questions.
Okay, perfect. President Reeser, Vice President Albert, Superintendent Bielefeld, other esteemed members of the board, my name is Addie Lowell. I am the Chief Financial Officer for Wichita Public Schools. While this is not my first official board presentation, it is my first in this role, so I'm excited to be here this evening. I have our 2025 proposed legislative agenda. We're going to have some set-aside time purposeful for questions and discussion, and our ultimate intent tonight is to approve a legislative agenda for the district to use for the 2025 legislative session. So I'll go ahead and start us off. I think before we look into where we're going, it's important to revisit where we've been. And so I wanted to pull out a couple of significant pieces of legislation that went into place from the 2024 legislative session that set a stage for us to start to develop our 2025 agenda. And so while there were many other legislative actions that affected Kansas schools from the 2024 session, these were some of the things that I felt were relevant to our discussion tonight. And so wanted to pull a few of those forward for you. A bigger story of the 2024 legislative session was really tax relief. And so I know personally I am enjoying no sales tax on my groceries at the grocery store right now. Something that impacted Kansas schools was the increase to the residential exemption from $40,000 to $75,000. The state did this while holding school districts harmless. So they were able to pass along tax savings to residential property owners while holding schools harmless. They essentially transferred funds over from some surplus in the state general fund to make up that revenue difference. So they also established an education funding task force whose mission was to review the current state funding or the school finance formula, look at the accountability measures and reporting measures that were in place, review the achievement goals and the outcome data related to those goals, and report back to the legislature by the 2027 legislative session. This is relevant because our current finance formula is set to sunset July 1st, 2027, and we'll talk more on this topic a little bit later. In addition to that, for the first year that I know that I've been with the district, there was a significant increase to special education funding. They established a local contribution special education state aid, which was put in with this equalization formula. It also required a local mandatory transfer from LOB funds. This was $73 million invested into special education. For Wichita Public Schools, we estimate that will be about $9 million this year, so significant investment. I think you guys have all seen this particular document. It's gone through a few iterations. I believe you also have in front of you a summary card that will kind of establish some of our key objectives and the components related to those. We were very clear in our objectives and our mission with this legislative agenda. So we have clearly defined objectives, components that constitute those objectives with asks and requested actions of our legislators as we head into the 2025 legislative session. We were simple, we were focused, and we were very specific. And so that was really our objective in establishing this agenda. So what are those primary objectives? They are support teacher and staff recruitment and retention, keep an adequate and equitable school funding formula, and support the needs of at-risk students. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one. And I'm not going to read the agenda word for word. I'm going to give you some key highlights and some data that will help you understand how and why we developed these particular components that will lead us into some good discussion later. So for supporting recruitment and retention, our first component under this particular objective is enhancing CAPER's Tier 3 options. So in 2023, the legislature ordered a study of the current CAPER's Tier 3 retirement plan model and asked legislative post-audit to compare it to other retirement benefit plans. So last year, they reported back on their findings to the legislature, and I'd like to read a couple of statements from what they determined through this study. So in comparison with other retirement plans, the CAPERS Tier 3 gives employees less flexibility, requires them to share financial risk, and generally provides lower benefits than other plans we evaluated. CAPERS has higher employee contribution rates, a longer vesting period, and longer retirement requirements than most other plans. We estimate that CAPERS Tier 3 generally provides lower benefits and requires employees to fund a larger share of those benefits than other retirement plans. We're seeing this in our own population. CAPERS Tier 3 makes up 51% of active members contributing into this plan right now. And so in terms of retaining staff in our school district with good retirement benefits is a critical component of our legislative agenda. Our requested action for this particular item is hopefully to send legislative post-audit on another cost study to provide some options and recommendations on improving the CAPERS Tier 3 retirement plan for our active membership. In addition to the CAPERS item, we also have some licensure changes for special education. So I think you guys have all heard the statistic, but Kansas schools started the year with almost 2,000 teaching vacancies. This is like the next pandemic, right, as vacancies of our certified staff in our schools. While Wichita Public Schools saw dramatic improvement in the number of our vacancies through the right sizing work that you all did, we still have difficulties recruiting some hard-to-fill positions, and that includes our special education teachers. Over 40% of our vacancies were special education related certified vacancies. And so right now there's some endorsement models that allow a special education teacher to be qualified to teach low incident or high incident. They've developed a new endorsement that allows you to have what they call a unified license. It's more flexibility to be able to serve every level of special education student where they're at with their needs. And so our requested action item for this particular component is to funnel a model, and this really is more of an advocacy item with KSDE because this is not specifically stated in statute. We just need to work with KSDE on some change in regulations and how we administer teacher endorsements. We'd like to see those two different low and high incident endorsements funnel into this unified model to alleviate some of the burden that we have with recruiting highly qualified teachers into this hard to fill occupation. On to our next objective. This is an adequate and equitable school finance formula. So I mentioned this earlier with the establishment of that education funding task force. This was purposeful, right, and why we included this. So since 2010, which is the year that the Gannon case was filed, school districts in Kansas have seen 3 different finance formulas. This one is, again, set to expire July 1st of 2027. We are requesting that this year the legislature just remove that sunset provision, which would still allow that education funding task force to evaluate the adequacy of the formula and report back to legislation on its effectiveness, but it would provide some stability and continuity for all Kansas schools, alleviate some of the unknowns into future financial planning. So just getting rid of that end date on this finance formula is one of our legislative asks. Special education funding, I mentioned the good news item we had from last year's legislative session. So in addition to that special education local contribution state aid that we are advocating we maintain in the upcoming budget, the governor has also proposed a 5-year plan to bring funding for special education excess cost up to the statutorily defined 92%. So all we're asking is legislation to support the governor's budget plan to work to that 92% of excess cost being funded for special education. Next is supporting the needs of at-risk students. I think you all have borne witness to just some of the amazing creative leadership that we have, trying to meet every student where they're at. And so we're trying to be a little proactive in our approach and get ahead of maybe some of the barriers that exist in legislation right now. We love coming up with creative opportunities to provide comprehensive and innovative education opportunities for every student, alternative or not, right? And so right now, there is a statute that exists that only allows us to provide alternative educational methods to students that are grade 7 and above. Our legislative action is to allow us to think ahead in the future by making that effective for all the grade levels that we support in Wichita Public Schools, so a K-12 alternative model. So just a change to that piece of legislation. Finally, we are requesting an expanded use of at-risk funds. So right now in Wichita Public Schools, this year audited, about 72.5% of our students qualify for free lunch. Our at-risk budget is ginormous. We have about $100 million from state aid that go to our general fund to support at-risk students. This year, we also were mandated to transfer an additional $29 million from our local option budget in support of those at-risk students as well. I will say from my experience that our at-risk fund is the most heavily regulated and restricted fund that we have right now. Everything that we support or buy or staff has to be specifically listed on an evidence-based practices list. And that list, more and more things get cut from the list. The process to update the list is very slow. One time per year, they evaluate new peer-reviewed evidence-based best practices. And so it's just a slow process. We have not been successful in a provisional application at this point either. And so we need some more flexibility. When our delivery model for at-risk services is applying to, again, our free and reduced population is almost 85%. We're delivering at-risk services at almost every single content, every single core class. And so our delivery model may look a little different than other schools in the state. And so we just need some additional flexibility to pilot out some programs so we can maybe even do our own kind of peer review to get some evidence-based practices on the list for things that are working in our school district. We'd even put a stipulation on that to be able to only pilot programs up to the amount that we transfer from our local option budget and not the state aid amount. So just some additional flexibility would help us out tremendously to alleviate some of those barriers that exist in us deploying successful options for supporting our at-risk students. So I made it through the agenda. With that, I will pause for questions and discussion on these topics or turn it over to Superintendent Bielefeld to add some color where I've missed it.
Not about color. No, you didn't miss anything. I did want to clarify just a couple things. For the special education licensure, Addie mentioned that's really more of a KSDE function, but KSDE's governing body is the State Board of Ed. So that's who we're advocating to for that one. We really are trying to have a kind of a comprehensive legislative agenda that isn't just about asking Topeka, you know, the lawmakers or the governor even for certain things. It's really about what do we need? And one of the things we need is that unified license and the ability for teachers to kind of cross over between low incidence and high incidence. Also, I think it's important, and if I say this wrong, you can jump in.
Okay.
Last year's budget, they added about $9 million in special education funding for USD 259. That was one-time money. That is not necessarily in the budget for next year. Nine. Yeah. Overall, it was $73 million for the state, but our portion of that was $9 million. So if something were to happen where if they said we're not going to increase special education funding, you know, that's whatever. But if they were to backtrack on that $9 million, that would be another $9 million we would have to come up with. That would be a cut for us if they didn't sustain what they gave last year. So is that fair?
Well, I just read Senate Bill 387 on this particular topic, and our previous special education funding across the state was $528 million. The bill does say $601 million for this year and the years after. I think just the process for the way those funds will be delivered to Wichita Public Schools is what may change. So unless there was an amendment to the final bill that they posted,
Okay.
it may not look the same. We may not get the same amount. I do believe that $73 million is built into the budget for this year and in ongoing years.
Okay.
And so the governor's 5-year plan would be an additional $75 million for fiscal year '26 on top of that $601 million budget to eventually get us to that 92% excess cost.
Well,
So-
thanks for that clarification.
Yep.
And then the last one about the at-risk really is about, another way to frame that is about local control, right? That we get the money from the state, but we also have local money, and all we're really advocating for is let our local money be local and let us determine how best to meet the needs of our at-risk kids, regardless of all the parameters that the state might put on their money. They can put parameters on their money, but what we would like is that flexibility. We believe we could do some innovative things that could really move needles for kids. We talked at the workshop today about expanding alternative programs, right? Some things like that that become trickier. I don't know if that's a fair word for it, but trickier when it's at-risk money and all the things that come with the evidence-based practices list, the do's and don'ts of that money. So for what that's worth, I think just, more increased local control is really kind of the blurb for that one. So
We fully support the use of the evidence-based practices, right? We reference that list all the time. We certainly want to be using peer-reviewed practices that have demonstrated success and achievement and outcomes and all of those things, which was what we would continue to do, and we would keep our own data and evaluate the success of those programs too. So,
that's all I have.
okay.
Okay, any questions for Addie? That's fine. Melody, go ahead.
Great report, Addie. That was lots of good information and detail. And fact-checking, when you were looking at, I think you said Senate Bill 387?
Mhm.
So any other insight that's come your way in terms of the education committees that are actually going to be potentially looking at, listening to these requests for changes or requests for amendments and/or actual laws to change some of what it is that we're wanting to do here? Because it's not going to all come through KDSE and/or State Board.
That's
Some
right.
of it is going to actually have to be voted on, supported and then voted on and passed.
I don't know that the Education Funding Task Force has made any updates on their progress and review. They're not supposed to come back to the legislature until January of 2027 with a report. And so I'm sure we'll be involved in some way, shape, or form to help provide some backup and research for that task force. I'm not sure if that special committee has convened yet this year, so.
Not to my
Yeah.
knowledge.
Mm-mm.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So then the other thing that I was going to add is that Kansas Association of School Boards pretty much lobbies and/or advocates for each one of these too. So it's not, we're not alone. And then who is it? I mean, are we familiar with any other district, particularly in the state of Kansas, that has actually, well, I think I'm going to answer my own question. How do we become successful at making the shift from funding that's earmarked for at-risk funding, that the majority of it is actually funneled through evidence-based programming, peer-reviewed programming, to some that we are familiar with? We know the outcomes of these programs. They're local. Who else is doing that we're familiar with, that we can bring that evidence to the table to say?
It's a tricky question, right? Because there's no other district really with the size and makeup of our at-risk budget. But and please jump in whenever you like here, but I think everyone struggles with their at-risk budget.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, we had a legislative post-audit on our at-risk expenditures. And I'll just give you an
little
excellent
painful.
example of the challenges,
Just a
right?
little.
We have multiple alternative schools in our district. Alternative schools require a principal, a secretary, a custodian, all the same things that a comprehensive school would require. We are not legislatively allowed to pay for those staff for a school that specifically exists to serve 100% of our at-risk students because it's not specifically listed on an evidence-based practices list, right? And so then in order to support other alternative at-risk programming, we also have to spend dollars out of another part of our budget. And we, without at-risk, we wouldn't be doing it. And so aligning those a little bit better is something that every district kind of got marks, if you will, against them. Even simple things so much as the nomenclature, what you call something. We referred to a program as diploma completion. They have credit recovery listed on the list. Diploma completion did not qualify for at-risk funds. Credit recovery did. So just because we called it something different, every district in that audit that went through that with us had the same results, had the same frustrations. And so again, back to that local control of we do need some of those funds that we do dedicate directly towards those students. Everything that we would set aside to pay for a building principal, that principal is serving 100% of our at-risk kids. So we just need a little more flexibility. And I believe every district shares those same struggles and would jump in on this particular item as well. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah,
Pretty
no,
much,
and
pretty
just-
much.
I echo that, and I do think that's a great example of kind of what we're talking about. We're not asking for no accountability, right? That's not at all what we're asking about. We're asking for maybe some common sense flexibility that we can work together. And even in some of the things that dropped off of the evidence-based practices list that were on it. And so that's a bit of the challenge, is it can be a moving target. I mean, I don't know how many got struck through this year, but it was a lot.
Just about every single year, I've seen a piece of at-risk legislation change or extra accountability added. So the goalpost has always been moving related to at-risk funds.
Yeah. So those are just some of the challenges that we're hoping that we can work with and not have things done to us that we can work with, because this is not about a desire to not be held accountable for the money. It's more about just having the ability to use local funds for those things. Like if they say, well, these things are it, and we say, well, this over here we believe could really help our kids to have to your point, there's a lot of districts that couldn't afford, so to speak, an entire at-risk, or an entire high school for at-risk kids, right? Just volume and scale, that's not feasible, where there's maybe a handful of us that do have both the at-risk funds to do it and the population that needs it. So that's just one example that it gets tricky, and I do think we could probably reach out to our friends in KCK and Topeka and Dodge and Garden, and I think they would feel some of the same pain that we feel when it comes to some of this. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Just to keep the discussion moving forward, I'd like to move that the board, the discussion is not over, I just wanted to clarify that. But I do want to move that the board authorize the district to advocate for the identified issues and to educate our legislator regarding issues impacting the district. And those issues are recruitment and retention, maintaining school funding stability, and support at-risk students with the subcategories listed on the card in order to keep on the opposite side of the card the momentum that we have going in this district.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I guess I had a last minute
Go ahead, Knock.
comment / question. In hindsight, I should have brought this up sooner.
That's okay, go
I
ahead.
think it was like last week, I had a conversation with Dr. Aaron Reif from the WCU's education department. We had a very long, robust conversation about paying student teachers. How would we I guess I'm asking, how would we go about, if there was board interest, adding that onto the legislative agenda? I guess I'm curious, like, your thought process behind that. And I should clarify, state government paying student teachers.
Right,
Yep.
yeah. The ability for us to pay student teachers
Yep.
or the state to pay that. Do you want to start?
I don't know that there's anything preventing us legislatively from not paying them. It's really a restraint on total resources. We have a tremendous number of student teachers that come and circulate through our buildings, and so I don't know of any piece of legislation preventing us from doing that. It becomes a little harder to determine how much they're working for us, what to compensate them for. Would we have mechanisms in place that would allow us to? Yes, it's a very costly item. Would we get the achievement that we're looking for from that item? Every dollar that we spend is an investment in the outcomes that you have established for us in our strategic plan, and so it's all a matter of choices. My kids personally love their student teachers. They love it when their student teachers come back and visit them, and so certainly, and I'll let Superintendent Bielefeld jump in now, but I don't know of anything legislatively that's preventing us if it was a priority for us.
I don't know that I have enough information to know whether that's the case or not. I do know that there are some grants that are available for, especially Board of Regents schools. We have kind of gone the other, not the other approach, but one of the approaches we've taken is more of an applied learning model, and that we would hire our staff on as paras, and then allow them the flexibility to work through. We're going to, really launch that, I think, in August, full bore, to really grow our own. That's not exactly the same thing, but I think it's somewhat similar, and that it is a huge burden, right? Because not only are you working for free for a semester, you're paying 12 hours at least of tuition for that same semester. So you're going in the hole, and you're working for free, and too many of our student teachers they wait tables on the weekends and things like that, which isn't ideal. So anyway, we can look into that more. I definitely think it's something we can explore. So,
Melody?
I think that's an excellent point, Knock. I appreciate you bringing it up as a former teacher and going through that, being a free labor for the period of time that you are student teaching. My understanding is that the apprenticeship program at Wichita State, I believe they do, similar to what it is the Grow Your Own, do pay there.
So students that go through the TAP program, the Teacher Apprenticeship Program at WSU, they are working as paras while they complete that degree.
So that is it.
That is not the same as a student teaching experience, though. So
No.
it's
No,
a little bit different, but yes.
It's not, but so it's similar to what you were saying.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
we could do that, though. Is
I
that
think
what
in our
you're-
model, ideally, yes, we would start them as they start their coursework, they would do that para, and then they would transition into almost a co-teaching model
Right,
at the end, instead of the TAP program currently is, you're a para the whole time.
right.
And you might be a para in a mixed abilities classroom, and then we hire you to be a second grade teacher. You might never have been a para in a classroom, right? You've only been in a pull-out setting. So that can create some challenges for the whole system. But I think we can, we've worked with WSU and WSU Tech to align something that I think it'll take a little bit, but it could be really good and beneficial for us to create that pipeline.
So we're thinking about doing that when?
Well, we tried to start a cohort this January and didn't have enough interest, so we'll start the first one in August. So
So you do have the
we have the
individuals lined
coursework lined up, we have the logistics, we have a lot of it
Very good.
in place. So
Okay,
we'll just need to get the people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. Any last-minute comments or questions? If not, we'll vote. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Addie.
Thank you.
Latona, next item, please.
Consent agenda.
I do not have any consent items to pull. Diane?
I have nothing to pull.
Hazel? Melody? Knock,
Nothing to pull.
Julie,
Nothing to pull.
Kathy? I move that we adopt the consent agenda. Moved by Stan, seconded by Melody to adopt the consent agenda. Motion carries 7-0. Latona, next item, please.
Policy first review, 5506, non-resident enrollment and admission.
It's this one, yeah. That's all right. Just revising some dates and cleaning up some language on this one, so not, we're revising some dates and then cleaning up some language. Instead of the Student Records Enrollment Services Office, we're calling it the Choice Enrollment Programs. So not a big substantive change on this one.
Without objection, I think we'll move that one to second reading. Next item, please.
First review, policy 1217, magnet school programs.
Kelly, were there any questions or concern about any revisions on this policy?
We haven't heard any questions or concerns, but again, revising a few of the dates, and you'll probably see there at the very end, number 11, we really didn't have a mechanism for removing a magnet theme from a school, and so that creates a mechanism for doing that. We also changed the frequency of the committee meeting from twice a year to once a year, and a few more of the details there. But more change than the one we just talked about, 5506, but not a whole lot changing here either. So,
Did anyone have concerns about the major substantive change on the wording added on about if the school district at some point needs to close a magnet program? If not, we'll move that one to the second reading as well. C, the first review of P 6900, career and technical education programs. Kelly, if you want to go over the revisions to P 6900.
yeah, just cleaning up the title of the office that had changed, and some legislation changed, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe. And so that strike through on number 6 is reflection of that we are allowed to pay tuition if we would like as a district.
Yeah, I believe that was kind of a cleanup language one there. Any concerns or revisions? The board is interested in that one. If not, we'll move that one to second reading. On the last one, second review, P200, Board of Education agenda and meetings. It's my understanding that we did have a little bit of a concern about softening the language about being able to bring up an item if you didn't bring it up on at the workshop, that you still have the ability to bring it up at the board, which I think is the intent of the policy. But I do think we want to try to kind of reword that a little bit in order to soften that language. Is that my understanding?
Yeah,
Diane?
Under consent, it's page 5, paragraph 3 will be the paragraph that will be reworded for
Okay.
next board meeting.
Okay, so we'll keep that one as a second review. So when this shows up in February, it will still be a second review. And that actually will work out nicely. We can probably, if we agree on that new wording, we could approve all 4 of these policy. Any objections to that? Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to move on then. Latona, next item, please.
Superintendent's report.
Kelly?
We're zipping through the meeting. I wasn't ready yet. Sorry. So I did want to bring up something that every day our staff shows up for kids, and every day they do amazing things. And so it's almost sometimes like the amazing become routine. And I want to bring up a situation that happened at Heights in December that we really did an amazing job as a system and as a district in supporting a situation that was really incredibly hard. So at a basketball game at Heights High School, and we had a referee that lost consciousness, and his heart stopped. I believe it was for 8 minutes. They administered CPR, administered the AED, and I know that the principal, Eric and Lauren and Brandon, the whole secondary office, had an immense amount of pride for the approach that the team took. In the middle of a basketball game, you don't want to have things happen in front of the entire crowd. So they evacuate the entire gym. Security jumps in, athletic director jumps in, trainer jumps in, actual coaches jump in to help, and revived the individual, and saved his life and got him up and going again. So I think it speaks to a lot of what we hear Terry talk about when she does her presentations, but it doesn't always become real. AEDs save lives. Having those in our buildings is a huge deal. Training saves lives. Our staff, in so many ways, is equipped for crisis in ways that other staffs that I've worked with before aren't. And so a lot of pride in how the team handled that, and quite literally saved a life that night because of the training, because of the support, because of everything. Unfortunately, a couple weeks later, from some complications, the individual ended up passing away. But it really was, a moment of, of showing that what we put into safety, what we put into training, it does pay off. And it's hard to believe, but I could probably sit up here for 30 minutes and tell stories from the first semester about similar things, about times when nurses in our buildings or AP in our buildings that they did things to intervene and really quite literally save the lives of kids and others. So it's heroic work, it's meaningful work, and I don't think we celebrate it enough and don't talk about it enough because for some of our folks, it's almost routine, right? And not that that was a routine event, but they're just so good at it. Their training is so effective that they just jump in and do what they do. So I wanted to bring that up to you all. I wanted to bring that up publicly to really celebrate that team at Heights for all the hard work that they did and the important work that they did to stay calm, to address the situation well, and to be able to see something work out and become successful there for that individual and his family. With that, I don't really have any other reports. Snow. Let's have it melt and go away and not snow anymore, in my opinion. But as always, snow decisions are difficult. We try to do our best to balance keeping everyone safe and making sure everybody has what they need. A lot of our kids have a need to be in school, have a need to be in a warm, safe environment that's offers 2 meals to them. So it's always a balance as we balance, the safety of staff and students staying home, and then the offsets of that. But we try to do the best we can on those decisions, and I think we got 2 out of 3 right last week at least. So it's nice to be back in school this week. Dad Bielefeld is praying for 5 days this week straight. So I don't know what my kids are wanting, but we need 5 days of school straight in our house. So. Get on some routine. But I do finally want to shout out to, again, when you don't see it in action, you don't think about it much, but the snow removal crews that do the work that they do, especially on last Monday, we woke up to a 10-degree wind chill and we were able to stay inside, and Luke's guys were out there with that layer of ice underneath doing the best they could to get things cleared. Those guys, we bought them some pizza, but they deserve probably, a lot more than that. But hopefully they know how much they're appreciated because as I drove around, parking lots are clear, sidewalks are clear, did a fantastic job getting things ready for this morning. So with that, I'll be done. Thank you, Stan. Sure.
Yes, Julie, go ahead.
Who is the crew person that's responsible for snow removal currently? Is it still Leland?
It's a couple. So Jason Murdoch is the director of maintenance, and then Leland Vance and Cody Benbrook are the two snow removal paint leads.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Julie. Latona, next item, please.
New business and Board of Education requests.
Any new business or Board of Education requests? Latona, next item, please.
Executive session, attorney-client privilege.
Diane?
I move that the board go into executive session for consultation with the district's general counsel, which would be deemed privilege and attorney-client relationship, for 15 minutes following a 5-minute break. The executive session will include all board members present and general counsel Dan Lawrence and Superintendent Kelly Bielefeld. The open meeting will resume here in this boardroom at 7:40.
And we will take a vote on this to move to executive session. Oh, sorry. Thank you, thank you. Moved by Diane, seconded by Kathy to go into executive session. You may vote. Motion carries 7-0. Back at what time? 7:40. Okay. The Wichita Board of Education is reconvening. No action taken in executive session, no action necessary. Before we go to the next item, I want to quickly thank the North High JAG program, Jobs for American Graduates Kansas, for coming to our meeting tonight, for especially just a personalized thank you for a school board appreciation month. Thank you very much. Latona, next item, please.
Election of officers, Board of Education.
I think everyone knows how to do this. You should have a ballot in front of you. For the first office we'll vote for is electing a president for the 25 calendar year.
I've dropped my stuff.
I know. Thank you. Everyone has a different color.
No.
That way, make sure Knock doesn't try to vote 3 times.
I don't know, maybe. Oh, you're
We'll give the clerk moment to tally, and she will announce the vote.
early. Okay, we'll warm it up.
Okay. Ballot 1 for president for the 2025 calendar year. Diane Albert votes for Diane Albert. Kathy Bond votes for Diane Albert. Julie Hedrick votes for Diane Albert. Melody McCray Miller votes for Diane Albert. Stan Reeser votes for Diane Albert. Hazel Stabler votes for Diane Albert. And Nok Fong votes for Diane Albert.
Congratulations, Diane. Our next ballot will be on the election of vice president.
Next year.
Sorry.
Ballots for Vice President. Diane Albert votes for Hazel Stabler. Kathy Bond votes for Hazel Stabler. Julie Hadrick votes for Melody McCray Miller. Melody McCray Miller votes for Melody McCray Miller. Stan Reeser votes for Melody McCray Miller. Hazel Stabler votes for Hazel Stabler. And Nak Vong votes for Melody McCray Miller.
Congratulations. If I'm counting that correctly, Melody 4, Hazel 3, so Melody is the new vice president. Next item, please.
Adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Moved by Stan and second by Kathy. And we'll. No, this was the last one.
Sorry.
Now we're ready for the
We're
one.
ready. We're cleaning up. Stan and Kathy.
Kathy, yeah. Motion carries 7-0. We'll see everyone in February.